know something? I've reviewed the other main Crash games, including Wrath of Cortex, which is now non-canon, except the first one. And the reason why is that I never finished it. No, seriously. I have played Crash Bandicoot. I completed the second game, and the third game, and of course the fourth game, Wrath of Cortex. But not Crash Bandicoot 1. I did own it once upon a time, but like with many other gamers, I discovered the super cheat. So I used that, beat Cortex, save Tana. I finished it. But we all know that doesn't count. You can't just cheat your way to the end and call, game over, that's it. It wouldn't be till like many years later where I picked up the N. Sane Trilogy and actually sat down and played through from beginning to end Crash Bandicoot on the PlayStation 4. Twice. So, it's 3 generations later and 5 years later, so let's review Crash Bandicoot. And the N. Sane Trilogy version as well. The story of Crash Bandicoot is basic and rivals the first Super Mario Bros. In terms of goals, but has a unique twist on establishing who Crash, Cortex, and Tana are. Crash was to be Cortex's general for his new mutant army, but the Cortex Vortex rejects him, making him a bit loopy. Cortex then sets his sights on Crash's girlfriend, Tana, after Crash escapes Cortex's castle and winds up on the shore of Insanity Island. Only then does Crash realize his predicament and sets off to save Tana. There, done. Simple premise for a simple game. Sure, it's not getting red carpet treatment, but it doesn't need to. This was at a time where more than just RPGs and adventure games started having stories beyond a brief dialogue box or a synopsis in the game's manual. The only criticism I'll give it is that on the PS1, you had to wait on the title screen for the cutscene to play. Gotta love the early days of 3D game design. If there's one thing I can say about Crash Bandicoot's gameplay, is that it did build a path for those transitioning from 2D to 3D games. Others would say that it's aged poorly, and I'm in agreement. For the most part. From the jokingly named Sonic's Ass game, that's exactly what you do. With eyes on Crash's derriere, you run towards the end goal while jumping, spinning, and breaking boxes, all the while avoiding or defeating enemies and collecting tokens to access the bonus stages. Collect 100 Wumpa Fruit for extra lives and get free Aku Aku Mask for a brief invincibility. Like the story, it is pretty basic, but then again it doesn't need to be overly complicated either. Again, this is 1996. Not a lot is known of what could be done with this new 3D gaming system. I have to say though, I felt really weirded out playing Crash Bandicoot after playing Crash 2. Because my history of Crash Bandicoot begins with 2. Or more specifically, the demo that I replayed several times. There's no crouch or slide, so platform is more precise. Movement feels more stiff rather than a tight fluid movement of the later games. And the bonus stages are accessed by collecting free Tana tokens and later Embryo and Cortex tokens. It is really amazing how limited the first Crash game was before Naughty Dog spread their elbows and made the Crash game blueprint to be used years later. Yes, Crash's gameplay has aged in comparison to what came later, but it's not broken. It's just frustrating when you know for a fact that you timed that jump. The remaster is a warts and all copy of the original, but somehow feels worse. From PS1 to PS4, Crash's hitbox seems to be rounded off, so all those easy jumps seem more frustrating than last time. Also, despite the invention of the analog sticks and every 3D platform game using them for decades, don't use the D-pad. It was designed with it in mind, so fricking use it. You will save countless lives doing so. From the outset, you travel from level to level across 3 islands, smashing your way through the island's crate stash, inhabitants, and other mutant generals to get to Cortex's blimp. While it is a straightforward path reminiscent of Super Mario World, there are no points of, "I'll come back to that later," like with Crash 2 and 3. If you want to advance, you can go back to the easy levels and farm for lives there. Come back when you grow a spine, jackass. I tell a lie, there are some extra stages along the beaten path if you find the keys from the Cortex bonus stages. Yeah, all 2 of them. Aside from the 2 keys, there are also the now traditional box gems and colored gems. Break every box in a level, get a gem. Do it without dying, get a coloured one. Yes, this game is expecting perfection from you, but the original was even more cruel, as you needed to not die to get a clear gem. So the remastered version is at least a little more fairer in terms of gem collecting. The level design itself is what many 3D platforms games did at the time. Hallways, if not then barely visible open-ended areas with flat textures. Again, this was one of the first 3D platform games, so a lot of 2D game design philosophy was given a Z-axis with death pits, traps and enemy placements, but with the option to go around them. Too bad that half the levels still take on a 2D approach to level design, but the difficulty remains intact as you can walk off the edge coming towards the camera. And difficult is the exact word I would use to describe these levels. The first island is a good introduction with an easy boss fight against Papu Papu, but slowly the game's levels get longer and more intricate with multiple moving platforms and death-defying leaps of faith. These are the kind of levels we add the prefix of those fucking to, as in those fucking bridge levels. I don't care how easy they were for you, Caddy, I still hate them!
You're weird.
Then there's the now traditional animal ride levels with the wild boar. They're fun, but trial and error is key because this boar waits for no one. Speaking of boar, the boss fights. While not all are terrible, they're just boring and are complete time wasters. Did that pun come across? Okay. Yes, it's the nature of bosses to attack then rest so you can get an easy hit. But at least the bosses in the later games are engaging, requiring you to be active as to not die. But here, riveting. At least Crash ducks to avoid the gunfire, so that's a cute detail. The best boss fight for me is Ripperoo, but it's way too tedious with the timing of TNT to blow up next to him as he hops everywhere. Again, my nostalgia begins with Crash 2, so a lot of Crash Bandicoot's limited game design irritates me over how basic it is and how much was changed and improved between two games. And between this and the N. Sane Remaster, saving is actually possible. No, really, in the original, you had to beat a bonus stage in order for the game to save or get a password. Here, you just push a button on the map screen and bam, job done. If there's one thing I can say that aged well, it's his visuals and sound. Despite being static and sequestered on the outskirts of the hallway Crash must run down, the graphics are colourful and imaginative. It really showcases the vibrant forests, the lost ruins, dark castles and evil labs in all their glory. The only downside is that there was a lot of repeating set pieces, so that the variety is lacking come the end of Island 2 before the labs hit the scene. I've got to admit, it was clever of them to use the standard fog as clouds for the bridge levels. See, I can say nice things about the things I hate. The remaster certainly gives the game world more life while still sticking to its roots. One thing I'm always in awe over is the subtle changes Crash's model took between the first and second games. Thank you, Lil Polly. While the model would have the same amount of polygons, the animation was much improved for a more expressive character. I'm sorry for the constant backhanded against Crash Bandicoot, but the animation for Crash just looks stiff and uncanny during gameplay. The cutscenes are at least tolerable. Crash 1 N. Sane keeps the same rigid style as the original, but amps it up with animation and fur. Something that looked odd on Crash in Wrath of Cortex for the Xbox, but I don't mind it here. I guess with all the glossy new graphics, it just fits in more than an orange ragdoll in a grey coloured ball pit. It's out of place is what I mean. Music on the other hand, wow. Even for the time, this soundtrack really hits with the title and Wild Boar themes being the most catchy and memorable. The rest don't hit that same punchiness, but do follow the same thematic style of Jungle Island with ruins and eventual labs. Not one track feels out of place. The remaster though, look, I'm sure they tried to recapture the feel of these tracks, but side by side, the remaster does sound clearer and have many levels of percussion and such, but it sounds tamer compared to the MIDI tracks of the PS1. Finally, the voice acting may be just a footnote, but Lex Lang is just killing it as Cortex. I do have a soft spot for Clancy Brown in the sequels, but Lex is just Cortex to me through and through. After traversing across all three islands, you finally make it to Cortex's blimp for the most drawn-out battle I've ever witnessed. You could watch the entire intro cinematic to Metal Gear Solid in the time it takes to beat Cortex. Anyways, you beat him, save Tana, and everyone is happy. Until the sequel, where Cortex survives, Crash now has a sister, and Tana is never mentioned again for more than 20 years. Alternatively, there's still the gems to collect, and collecting all of them unlocks a hidden ending in the Great Hall, where the couple ride off on a bird, as well as some epilogues to all the boss characters. And I have never done that. The only reason I'm aware of it is because of, again, the Super Cheat. Now I consider myself fairly competent at Crash Bandicoot games, to be honest, but I have zero patience for the game's prerequisites for gem collecting, even with the remaster's more forgivable nature of the death penalty and box counter. But after what I dealt with Crash 4, I'm willing to try again. Crash Bandicoot is a testament of 3D platform gaming. While Super Mario 64 set the bar for what could be achieved, Naughty Dog made Crash a starting point for everyone else, successfully or not. Despite being a simplistic game by today's standards and the standards achieved by its successors, it makes up for it with charm and character. I wholly recommend playing Crash Bandicoot, but only if you're willing to challenge your gaming skills, because this game does not care for your excuses. Plus, if you're new to the series, then the widely available N. Sane Trilogy is the best place to start if you want a slightly more fairer challenge. Plus, you get to play as Coco.